Debate on Chandrayaan-2, of course, part of India's lunar mission, the launch of which, of course, will take place on 15th of July, early in the morning. It's a huge deal for India. It will ensure that it is in the elite club, space club, really, of superpowers, which right now includes US, China and Russia. But why is it that you have first world media groups wanting countries like India to not focus on their space program? Why is it that you have media groups like the BBC questioning India's decision to spend billions of dollars into its space program, instead saying so much so that poor countries like India should be prioritizing as to where exactly should they be spending their resources in? And that's exactly a question that I would be asking my panelists as well. But first, because this is also a series meant to explain to our viewers what Chandrayaan-2 is going to be all about, let's quickly tell our viewers how exactly would India land on the moon.
Vikram, the lander, will land on the moon anytime between the 6th and the 7th of September 2019. If all goes well, which it should, up until this point, ISRO has used the same strategy as the Chandrayaan-1. What's new, in fact, is this landing. We will, for the first time, attempt what is called a soft landing on the lunar surface, and if successful, India will join the elite space club with US, China and the erstwhile Soviet Union as the fourth nation in the world to have achieved this feat, and that too in the first attempt. This is what the lander Vikram looks like. All hopes of Chandrayaan-2 rely on this 1000 kg device. Once it lands successfully, it will put India in the international headlines once again. ISRO is sure of the landing. This is how we'll do it. Once the orbiter is in the moon's orbit, it will take 27 days to revolve around the moon and deorbit the lander. This will happen at a distance of 100 kilometers, and it will take the lander, once separated, 4 days to reduce the distance to 30 kilometers. Meanwhile, the orbiter will be scanning the surface of the moon for a landing site. Once the site is locked, the information will be relayed to the lander. On the 6th or the 7th of September, 53 days after being launched, the lander will have 15 minutes to make a soft landing. It will travel at a speed of 2 kilometers per minute so that the landing can be smooth.
It takes the 15 minutes from the starting of the braking of the velocity to landing. This 15 minutes is going to be the most terrifying moment for all the people who belong to ISRO, probably for the scientists and people of India also. Yeah, this 15 minutes is going to be the most difficult task that ever ISRO has undertaken the mission to land it on that.
The lander is landing on the moon's south pole, an uncharted territory. This location has been chosen as it is permanently shadowed. We're hoping to find water and minerals as well as clues about the early solar system. Lander of Chandrayaan-2 has been named Vikram after Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, the man whose name is synonymous with India's space program. It weighs a whopping 1,471 kgs and can create electricity up to 650 watts. It will function for 1 lunar day, which is equivalent to 14 Earth days, and has been designed to make a soft landing, which means that the vehicle will not be damaged or destroyed during the process. It has been equipped to communicate directly with the Earth and can also communicate with the orbiter and the rover. Once landed, it will be studying the moon's quakes while gathering data from the rover.
All right, so that of course explained how India would land on the moon. But, the big question that I want to ask, in fact, all my panelists here is that at some level, one wonders why is it that a media publication or a media house like BBC would actually come out with asking such a question? Is it a matter of if either this or that? Is that what it is? Pathikrit Pine, and then I open this up to the other panelists as well, that you're a poor country, you cannot be investing in billions of dollars, we cannot see you as the next big space giant.
Gauri, let us look at what India's space research has achieved. There's a small satellite which ISRO launched in 2016. It's called SCATSat. The objective of this satellite is to do cyclone prediction. when Cyclone Fani hit Odisha, for more than a month before it hit, India knew that it's going to come. So the kind of evacuation that was done resulted in the number of casualties being less than 100, which 20 years back when Odisha had a similar cyclone, the casualties were 10,000 plus. This is what India has achieved. And the problem with the kind of organizations like BBC is, look, BBC, I consider it nothing less than a Western white supremacist channel. Their whole object, they can't accept that, look, here is a country like India, which we have sucked out for $1 trillion more amount of resources over the last 200 years when they were in this country. And how can this third world country, which was our colony, can do all these things? And I would be very interested to see if a New York Times this time has a guts to come out with another cartoon. The problem is this year, India is going to breach the United Kingdom as an economy with a more than $3 trillion GDP. We are going to breach the United Kingdom in terms of our GDP. So the thing is that they can't accept. Their presumption is still that you are, literally a brown-skinned person. You can't do all these
Exactly.
things. Unfortunately, what they don't realize is that it is these brown-colored Indians who, young Indians who toil day in and day out to maintain critical software systems of the world, which makes your ATMs run, which makes your planes work, in the right way, which makes sure that your systems work properly in your power sector, in your other sectors. So I think it's time that the West gives some respect to countries like India, and they have been forced to give that respect to China because China does a lot of arm twisting. We have never done that. We have never tried to be, we have never tried to project that we are superior to them. We have always been doing our work and maintained a low profile. But I think it's time India starts showing something to them.
Colonel saying, this white man syndrome has to stop. As Patikrit said, this white man supremacist tendency that all these people have, as you can see, in fact, we've put out that cartoon as well, exactly where they were mocking us.
You see, it is sheer business. The Western world is always concerned with business. If you can please see the trend in last 10 years, they are losing business when many countries are sending their satellites from India through ISRO. One. Number two, this development creates a trend for India that they are all apprehensive that tomorrow India will start developing their own weapons, their own aircrafts, their own ships. So this development should not take place. Why? Because this development, when India will do it, they will do it very responsibly, and in world over, the inclination of most of the countries will start coming towards India, which nobody wants. All these developed people are selfish enough. You see, today we all respect US, France and everybody for what reason? Because they are developed economically. Now today India is showing we can afford to do a Chandrayaan.
Exactly.
Which is hurting them. Because nobody wants, when they call us a poor country, well, UK might as well look at their own side. They can apne gireban mein jhaak kar dekh le. They are wanting to cut the Queen's budget.
Yes.
What does that mean? Now should I start calling them poor? No. Every country has its constraint. Now calling somebody else as a poor country, well, BBC must wake up.
Exactly.
Here is a poor country which will do wonders. It has already started on that expressway of doing wonders. We are able to send things out in space at a much cheaper rate.
Exactly.
As compared to what they are doing, because for them it's a high business. Sending satellites up in air is crores and tons of money. Now that money will start coming towards India.
Exactly.
That is what is concerning them. It's a very simple mathematics.
Exactly. Dr. V.N. Jha, you want to come in there, sir? Then I get in Robindra Sachdev as well.
Look, it has got the multitudes of dimensions. Someone calling us poor, well, earlier we were poor, but now we are going to be $5 trillion economy. Our poor's address, poor's concerns have been addressed by the government. Now everything that the government is doing, the development is reaching to the poorest of the poor in India. So now criticizing India for this sort of expenditure doesn't bear any, it doesn't stand for. And sooner or later, they will all realize that yes, India is very rightfully there in the technology. It's going to be a technological superpower. You can imagine, the number of the brains that is working right now on all these projects are huge. You can add, the 10 countries like UK and France and everyone, and then that is what we are right now working. So there is no comparison with them. Now India is a power in the space research and space exploration. And there was one more thing that I was very happy with this mission. This is the first mission in which you are lifting up a payload of 3.8 tons. If you remember, our Gaganyaan is going to be carrying a payload somewhere close to 4,000 kg.
Yes.
So in that respect, this is a very important mission. And secondly, when you are inserting such a heavy payload into the orbit, it is not a very high risk area, but it has got its own concern.
Yes.
And thirdly, what Mr. Sivan had explained to us, the soft landing onto the moon in those 15 minutes where you
Makes
are
all the
not
difference,
going
yes.
to have very ultimate control of it. It is all computerized and it is all going to be happening.
Yes.
That's the type of technological feat that we are going to achieve. So
Yes.
it's a very proud moment for India.
Exactly. And in fact, I'm going to come to him as well with this question, but Robindra Sachdev, to you first.
Fair enough. A couple of points. I think you see what this demonstrates and where it's leading to. It's not only advancements in our technology in respect to space and communications and pushing the frontiers. I'll give another industry sectors, pharma and metallurgy. I'll come to it in a minute. See, the value of space is also that you can do experiments in space environments, right? In zero gravity, etc. The world of tomorrow, pharmaceuticals, molecules,
Yes.
newer molecules being designed, investigated or even created in environments in zero gravity in the space is what's coming up tomorrow. If as soon as we start developing those molecules and research, we also own the intellectual property of those molecules, right?
Yes, yes.
So it's not research in multiple, manners has the benefits. Pharma industry, similarly metallurgy.
Yes.
The cars of tomorrow and the aircrafts of tomorrow, you want them to be lighter and multiple alloys and all, etc. How do you discover and create your alloys? You discover and create new alloys
Yes.
by maybe, farming out something rare earth or rare moon kind of elements
Yes.
from the moon, or doing experiments in space and creating new, materials. So these are two specific industries where you will, or we will, of course, us, will, create intellectual property and we will create newer materials. We have advances. Pharmaceuticals could, end up lowering the cost of medicines for the diseases of the future.
Yes.
So these are a couple of other, advantages which we don't normally associate or realize, which come to us through, going deeper into space, building up our capabilities and our abilities to do experiments in the rarest of environments and space environments, etc. So
exactly.
those are
Okay.
the advantages when we,
Okay.
when Colonel was saying that,
yes.
it's about business,
Yes.
you get the intellectual
I'm
property.
going to come to the space race also in just a bit, but let me get in Mr. Satish Chandra as well on the fact that respond to the fact that thousands of crores are being spent, billions of dollars are being pumped into India's space mission by its government at the time of other conflicting priorities. That is what the West makes it sound like, almost afraid of the fact that India is now going to be part of that high table, is going to be very much a part of the elite space club. Satish Chandra.
As I said, there is talk of people settling on the moon, having colonies of people settling on the moon. And for that it is extremely important that India be in the picture. India also be in a position where it can send its own people to live in those colonies there. But apart from that, the fact that we are able to go to the moon and understand what the moon is, what the actual surface of the moon looks like, the possibilities of there having been water or not, or not having water there, are those which will give us a clear picture of how the moon was in the past and how it is today, and possibly how it will be in the future. We also know that the moon has, it impacts upon tides of oceans.
Yes.
So all those things will be better understood if we do go to the moon and try to look at what is happening. And apart from that, like I said, it is also test to looking at other areas in space where we can go and explore
Okay.
for reasons which are
Professor
scientific
Chandra being very
and
diplomatic
social.
there. Okay, Professor Chandra being very diplomatic. But, let me ask this question, to both Dr. V.N. Jha as well as to Pathikrit Pine. Dr. Jha, let me begin with you. The space race has begun, clearly. Whether you talk about the private sector, you have Elon Musk, you have Branson, you have Jeff Bezos, and you have, of course, governments ensuring that as far as the space race is concerned, they shouldn't be left behind. Clearly, India is also now very much part of that space race. And where does India go from here, sir?
This race has started long back. The moment Russia sent its first manned mission, the US was defeated, and they felt that they were left behind in the race. So right from the first manned mission to the space race has started. But thereafter, sustaining in the space is something which concerns every scientist. Even I'm a life support scientist. So I have seen the practical difficulties that one can have. Right now, we are also planning for the human space mission, and we know how much difficulty it has got. But once you have your own technology, once you have tackled all this, and once you have the eyes, the physical eyes in the space above the earth, which can see much more than what a camera can see. And when you have got a man there looking at the earth, at your enemies, that is going to be a totally different thing. So usually people don't talk of this army or armed forces in space, but you have got that pair of eyes there, which is in addition to the various types of cameras, which is looking at the international borders and various other things. So that is something which space race is worth taking up.
Okay.
And secondly, everything that you develop today, the International Space Station is carrying out about, at any given time, there are about 78
Exactly.
to 80 projects which is going on there. Some metals are being developed, some alloys are being developed in the zero-G, and that is going to have consequences here on the earth. So it is not only the military or the eye, it is going to the economic space hub also. It is going to the technological information as well. So please don't ignore. It is a big thing.
Absolutely,
Whether you call
sir.
it space race or anything else, but the very fact that you have got technology where you can sustain your satellites, your human there in the space, giving another pair of eyes to what is happening, it is much more than what we can imagine, what we can think of.
I completely agree there, sir. Yes, Pathikrit, you want
Gauri,
again?
a
And then
very
I get in Colonel Singh.
A very
Yes.
small point I would like to make is that space has been one of the very few sectors where the governments took the initiative and been a pioneer, whereas in most of the other sectors it has been the private sector which took the lead, and later on probably the governments came in.
Yes.
Interestingly, what is happening now is that the private sector is realizing the potential of space, not just in terms of the future innovations that can happen in terms of reducing traveling time. We don't know what kind of new frontiers would be opened where people might try, there will be crafts which will be traveling like a ballistic missile, going into the space and then moving in. We don't know. I mean, 20 years back, nobody thought about a Facebook or something like that. That's one aspect of it. Secondly, when you see the kind of resource crunch that the world is looking at today, India is facing a huge problem of water.
Yes.
Satellites, you will see in the future, the private sector would be launching large number of satellites for better resource management, water management, management of disasters. These are the areas I think gradually the government would outsource it to the
Yes.
private sector, because you would see what is happening. There is a space industrial ecosystem which is
Yes.
gradually being created, where the competition today may not be just for strategic warfare purpose between one country and another,
Yes.
but the private sector would come in to get a pie of it and change the entire dimension of economic growth and take it to the next level. The way mobile telephony did it in the last, say, 10 years, space might do it in a different manner in terms of technology. So we don't know. We are looking at a very different dimension that might take global economy to a next level in the next 1 decade or so.
And
the
India is
private
gonna be a
sector,
very,
definitely,
major part of it, yes.
absolutely, India is going to, India is pushing the rest
Yes.
to do it.
Yes, Colonel Singh, yes.
You see, this point is coming on your screen time and again. How can India afford it?
No, this is a question they asked. This is a question that BBC
so
asked, yes.
I want to answer, my dear critic countries, we can afford it the way we want. we are not taking this money firstly from you.
Yes.
We are not diverting any money anywhere. It is within our sources. Now coming to your specific question, the critics which are asking, all those critic countries, I think India needs to tell them today, well, this rocket science is our intellectual property right. Come on the negotiation table, offer us something good. Let us discuss it. For what cost, we will tell you that how we are able to afford it. It is our business how we are affording it.
Exactly.
As far as you calling us poor, well, let me tell you one thing. Being poor is a mentality. It is not other. These people are carrying on with this mentality for last 100 years now. Why? Because all this technology has got a direct military implication.
Yes.
Which these countries don't want India to come forward. They want India to stay back, keep importing these technologies from these 4 or 5 countries,
Yes.
and the monopoly continues. What happens if the missile technology is mastered by India?
Yes.
That means we have taken it to a next level by putting Chandrayaan there.
Yes.
That is one. Now, we can take war anytime to the space, which they are worried about because it was still their monopoly.
Yes.
Having the capability with us is itself a weapon.
Exactly.
They are worried about it. That how can India be empowered to have this weapon?
Yes.
Technology development has suddenly become our focus,
Yes.
which they never want. This is the specific reasons where the critics are asking us, how can we afford it? Because we are able to address so many things together. We are getting alive to this option, which these countries don't want. Why? Because as I told earlier, it has got a very significant business angle also, because there is a lot of business which will come to India by virtue of this technology being mastered by us.
All right. Yes. Rupendra Sachdev, you want to come in? Then I get in Professor Chandra
Sure,
as well.
couple of quick points. If you call somebody poor, how can you afford to do it? I think we should remind everyone, people look at a portfolio approach. Even if you're a poor person or a poor family or a poor country, you look at your portfolio where you want to invest so much money or whatever. So it's our planning in terms of where we think our portfolio of investment should go. Exactly.
Yes.
That's one. Secondly, absolutely,
So this comes from the mindset where you think that such and such person cannot and should not be sitting on the high table. It
No,
comes from that deep-seated
Absolutely.
mindset.
See,
that is what it is.
I agree. And a lot of, you see, the traditional view of looking at India is India as a land of snake charmers, poverty,
The cow
floods,
jokes.
floods, cow
And the
jokes.
cow jokes,
So
yes.
that has been the prism through which the Western media has since long looked at India. So they're not kind of used to, I mean, whatever appears in the press in the West is only about floods and tragedies in India, right? It's only now that the news of some achievements or some new things happening in India are being reported in the West. So now next, I'll again repeat, the advantage apart and in addition to the space and military and strategic depth that we'll obtain is in terms of the experiments, in terms of newer molecules,
Yes.
newer biology, newer medical sciences, newer alloys, alloys can be used in civic as well as defense.
Exactly.
We can perhaps down the line use those alloys for fighter aircraft which can make them radar invisible, right? So that's the kind of intellectual property and business that you're generating. Thirdly, somebody mentioned about the International Space Station. Yes, it's been a business. So what happens? Companies rent out space in the ISS
Yes.
to run their experiments there. So of course it's a business out there, companies are using that.
Yes.
So multiple aspects wherein I think which achieves, and one more last thing,
Yes.
India is right now preparing a new space policy,
Yes.
which would come out I think by the month of December or something, or the next
Okay.
parliament session.
Okay.
So once the policy comes, or I would think the policy which is being planned right now will be much more modern, fresh looking, taking
Okay.
a fresh new look. So watch out for the new space policy. You'll see a lot of encouragements, including for the private sector, for startup environments, and a holistic approach to space, which would take, I think, India to space 2.0.
Oh, all right. And let's take stock of what the Chandrayaan-1 actually achieved. Professor Chandra, while we talk about what next as far as the Indian space program, what next after, of course, Chandrayaan-2, help us understand, sir, what really did Chandrayaan achieve till now?
Chandrayaan-1 was, its greatest achievement was to demonstrate that India had the technological prowess to go to the moon. Otherwise, our space program mainly concentrated upon various launches of satellites and rockets. But Chandrayaan 1 demonstrated that we can also go to the moon, and it also became the precursor for Mangalyaan, which went to the Mars, which was a much longer journey. So Chandrayaan 1 was a significant landmark, and it also gave us a picture. We didn't have to rely upon America's NASA or Russia to get an understanding of what lay on the moon, what was on the surface of the moon. So it's a significant achievement.
All right, before I wrap this up, quick closing comments from our panelists. When you talk about a Jeff Bezos or a Richard Branson or an Elon Musk interested, I want to ask, how about the Indian private sector post this? Quick closing comments, I don't have a lot of time. Let's start with Dr. Jha. So, concise answers.
It has got a very big implications onto the PPP that is being followed, the civilian program that is going on, and ISRO, remember please, ISRO is a totally 100% civilian program.
Yes.
So whatever it is going there, it is being absorbed in
I'm talking about the Indian
by
corporate
entire
sector.
industry.
Indian corporate sector. Robinder Sachdev, Indian corporate sector.
I think definitely, yes. Some of our private sector, especially from the automobile industry background, who are into precision industries like maybe Mahindras and all, could come up, and they are already actually working on saying Godrej Precision Industries. Even for this Chandrayaan, there are over 120 private sector companies who are supplying the various components, and there's a very thriving startup ecosystem.
Okay.
What is needed for a Bezos kind of a scenario or a Musk kind? There would be some, given the right mix. Given the new space policy, we could see some large players stepping up.
All right, large players coming in. Yes, Colonel Singh, very quickly, sir.
I would only say it's not only an outstanding feather in the cap for India. It makes India stand out, and world, look out, we are there, we are coming, and we are going to cross you.
Okay, yes.
Gauri, I think the next step has to be over the next 1 decade, liberalize the space sector, allow the private sector not just to make components for ISRO, but to launch their own satellites on their own. So that entire ecosystem has to have multiple players which are Indians. That's how you actually become a global power, and not just having one organization, with due respect to ISRO for whatever it has achieved.
All right, this sets the ball rolling for, of course, that mega launch of Chandrayaan 2 that will take place on 15th of July at 2:51 a.m. Thanks so much for watching this special broadcast.